Well, we are back again. Another beautiful day. Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday. I hope you're all doing amazing, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. I hope this day makes you a lot better, more joyful, and feeling successful than yesterday. So today is day 19th of our daily commitment to come, show up, and give you so much value. And that's what we're here for, just literally coming out, giving you so much of value that we literally have been researching for decades. We get paid for to provide these to our clientele. And now we are here just trying to give back and make this community grow together. Because without our commitment to growth, to ourselves first, and then to our community, we stand no chances of ever succeeding as a society. So the first and foremost foundation of being able to do anything for anybody else is to first do for yourself. This helicopter is just sticking around and not going anywhere. Can you guys hear that? What's up, guys? Recording here, Thank you, boys. I would appreciate it if you just left us to do this in peace. Yes, so as I was saying, the only way we as humanity are able to ever help our family, our loved ones, our kids, our parents, and our friends happens when we are first able to help ourselves, not only to thrive, but first to survive. And because there is no way to thrive if we are still constantly in a state of surviving, trying to survive every day's life events and the memories of the past that we are bringing along with us as a baggage, carrying so much weight on our shoulders, literally, of the stories that are no longer relevant today, and they're no more true than the Santa Claus story. Okay, so it is very critical for us to talk about this, because I had a client which I was speaking with over the weekend, and Jesus, you guys are definitely just like, yeah, come on, just come right on top of us, closer, because I think they're having a hard time hearing the helicopter. Oh boy, that's all right. That's what you get for coming outside in Florida. By the way, so many helicopters fly in Orlando, Florida airspace. I don't even know what's happening with this. Living in Canada for like 20 years, I never even heard a helicopter once. And then I come to US, and there's always helicopters everywhere, especially in Florida. West Palm Beach, Orlando, some Miami. And then I was over the weekend. This is very interesting. And they were discussing going from Orlando to West Palm Beach in 2 weeks for an event, for a gala. And the conversation literally goes like this while we were sitting in their like $200,000 Mercedes driving on the highway, and which was like a plane of its own. So they go like, yeah, so we're going to go in 2 weeks. The husband and wife are just discussing between themselves. And they said, well, it's going to be a 4-hour drive, basically 3 hours drive to go from Orlando to West Palm Beach. And West Palm Beach, if you didn't know, Mar-a-Lago is there. Some of the richest per capita postal codes and zip codes in US are in West Palm Beach. And they were talking about considering this, really, because they wanted to go to a gala 3 hour away. Instead of driving, how about we take the helicopter ride? It just takes half an hour to cut through and just go fast with a helicopter. And I was like, what? Like, this is so USA. The abundance in this beautiful country is so immense, which is why it's literally called the land of dreams. Let alone the fact that it's like the money for it is there, for the resources are there if you want to, if it serves you. It's just the fact that it's even an option, to just say, yeah, we're just going to go here, take a helicopter ride, go to a gala and come back And how much does it cost? I don't know, like about $8,000. Cool, that's amazing. I want you to live with that as an inspiration. Now that we are having to deal with the sound of the helicopter here, allow the sound, if you're hearing it, to be an inspiration for you to understand there are people literally today on this planet that wake up and discuss how they should rent a helicopter ride to go to a party 3 hours away at the most influential and affluent probably zip code in all of United States. And meanwhile, you are underplaying yourself because you're doubting your foundational skills and ability to even succeed or to fail. That's literally why so many of us are not doing what is necessary instead of taking those actions. And that's why, by the way, Consultants Without Borders is created. It is because, see, to the most affluent people, they purchase their time back with money because they understand the value of time. For the poor, which is 99% of society, people love to work to trade their time for money so that they would go and get a bunch of shit they don't even need, to spend it on stuff they don't even want to because it just gives them significance. And all of that is happening due to, as we spoke yesterday in detail and in depth, due to lack of our ability to control our emotional state. All of that happens for that one reason. And now what happens is that instead of us striving to experience our fullest potential in this lifetime, we either play it small because we are afraid to get noticed and build resentment in the community around us, in our families, in our loved ones, because you don't think that happens? Of course it happens. Of course, when you become successful, those around you, especially those who thought until 2 years ago you were a Joe Schmo nobody, they're all of a sudden going to realize you did something worth doing, and they will resent the side of themselves that you remind them of themselves, which is available as a potential, but they're not experiencing because they're also limiting themselves. It's so important to understand this, because I was saying this over the weekend. I had a client and I realized these are probably the most important conversations we'll ever have, more important than the success and strategy and the business side. We have so many questions that are coming from all of you from anywhere in the world. Oh my God. And I completely forgot to go live on our Facebook, on our Instagram channels. Okay, Instagram just went up. So we usually are broadcasting every day between the hours of 11 to 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 14 different outlets and 6 different platforms, with the one intention of bringing the services of premium consulting to the general public. Because until now, you don't find services like this where they bring what the most affluent people pay us over hundreds and hundreds of dollars an hour, so that we do the research and we provide them these information that I'm just giving you because I love every one of you, and I'm not selling you a single thing here. I want you to understand that there's nothing to sell you here. There's nothing. I literally just want you to understand that you are not alone, that you don't have to go about this alone. I want you to understand, oh yeah, and the sirens come. So definitely something's popping around here. I really hope everybody's okay and nothing has happened to anyone. I want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that you don't have to be alone. See, one of the most powerful things that the legacy media and the establishment that has been governing Earth methodically and systematically and historically for thousands of years, through generations to generations, through kingdoms to kingdoms, through governments leading to the next governments, one of the most important things that has kept humanity still is the idea that they have built into us, especially more so ever than before within the past 40 years, that we can do this alone. The individuality is more important than the group, and that cannot be further from the truth. There is never, ever a human that has been able to achieve greatness alone. Never been. So this is why I'm here pouring out everything we have worked for in our lives so that we could build ourselves to get ourselves to the levels of absolute fulfillment and abundance for which we are absolutely grateful for to you, because I don't have anything to sell you other than your own promise of your own future that you've been delaying because you have not been taking the massive actions necessary to get what you want and what you need and what you deserve. Do you understand what I'm saying? If it makes sense, I want you to snap it out and click it out for yourselves, because I want you to get involved and get excited about life. Don't just go scrolling. Even if you're going to watch this, please get some emotions into it. Instead of sitting down, if you're watching this, get up and watch it. I don't know where you are or which platform you're on, which country you're in watching us, but I want you to understand, whether there's one person in the room or you're the only person or hundreds on some of our platforms, this conversation is for you alone, for you to give yourself the absolute attention at this moment. And I'm not asking me to have your attention. I want you to pay attention to yourself for a second and think, what has been preventing you from experiencing what you think you deserve? I don't know what you think. I don't even know what you deserve. You only know what you deserve. But we all have reasons. And this is what I was telling you. Over the weekend, I had a client. And this client was having massive health issues. Cancer, open heart surgeries, coming from an affluent background. And I'm telling you these things because all of our clients are mostly at a personal level, people who are doing very well in life. Because just the fact that they could afford paying $600 per hour is a telltale of what they're capable of. And we were trying to do some NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, coding, to change some of the underlying software that is running the hardware within her. We were just trying to do that, assist her to do that herself, because there's nobody that can do that for you. And this is the conversation that comes up. And by the way, we have this actually, our amazing team has found me this amazing conversation from Dr. Matte, French, if I'm not mistaken, Gabon Matte. He's going to introduce himself. But we're going to listen to him actually talk about why do we as humans go into patterns of addictive experiences only because we're chasing the instant satisfaction of dopamine, just that cheap shot of dopamine that makes us feel good because we are not feeling good. See, do not ask why addiction, ask why the pain. Why the pain actually matters. Because we all have different addictions. We think we don't. We are addicted to at least sugar or social media, if not both of these. And if you actually go and look at your phone's statistics, because every phone, Samsung, Apple, I don't care what your phone on, Android, they all have their own reporting softwares. They will tell you how much of your time you have spent per day and in the last week or in the last month on your phone, on which application you spend your time. I want you to please look into this. Go in your phones and find out. Don't go right now, you'll probably lose this. Stay with this, but write it on a piece of paper for yourself, that I'm going to go and check out how much time I spend on social media. It is kind of scary. You know why it's scary? Because according to studies, we are spending hours every day on social media. But you know what's really funny? Studies show that when you do something, anything that you desire, anything that you wish, for 5 minutes a day, After 365 days, which is just a year, but by the way, how much is 5 minutes? Nothing. You spend probably longer time behind the toilet door in a public space than 5 minutes a day if you just averaged out how much you had to do that at events or venues or bars or wherever you are. I want you to please consider this. 5 minutes a day for 1 year, you do anything, something you don't have any idea about, by the end of the year, you're ahead than 90% of the planet Earth in terms of your skills and ability and knowledge in that subject department. This is very interesting. I am a recovering opiate addict, and I traded opiates for video games. Wow. Thank you, honestly, for your candidacy to step up, because we all have addictions. See, the thing is, the first rule of being able to kick the addiction or any pattern or deal with anything in life is to first acknowledge its existence. Because how many of you know somebody who's completely heads into trouble, and then when you discuss it with them, whether it's alcoholism or whether it's any ism or whether it's just them distracting themselves and getting into trouble, and then you talk to them or their health is going out of balance, they're like, no, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. How many people do you know? Maybe yourself, maybe me. So let's talk about this. Why does addiction happen? Because addiction is within all of us. It happens because we are living in an internal state of pain and suffering. And we feel sometimes our body cannot sustain for prolonged periods of time emotional states. That's why even when you're so excited, have you ever had a time where you're just laughing so hard that like your snout is coming out and like you can't laugh, your stomach is hurting? After 10 minutes of doing that, your body, your face muscles are hurting, you will stop and you're just gonna sit down and be like, your face is just like caught up in this state of laughing, and but your body cannot sustain emotional intense states such as feeling very excited or very depressed for prolonged periods of time. That's why the autonomic nervous system, ANS, the parasympathetic side and the sympathetic side, they need to regulate the actual excitement and the relaxation of one another. And they go in turns. You see, you cannot be too relaxed all the time. That's why we get angry and we get worked up in a crazy 8 loop in neuro-linguistic programming or psychology, which is the pattern that we all, this empowering pattern that we all go into when we start thinking about negative stuff and focusing about the negative stuff, or the positive upward spiral versus the negative downward spiral, is that when we start focusing on how we are grateful and how we are capable and how we start recognizing within ourselves that we can, then life starts happening more for us and we get rewarded more and we get noticed more. And you all know that when you've been in your element and you've been so just high vibration, happy, excited, and you walk into a space and everybody suddenly is like drawn to you and people are like, who is that? And you feel that energy on you. Versus any time where you feel like you don't even exist because you're so living in your own head, just having these conversations about the pain that I was just referring to, that is the suffering, is the void within all of us, that we get so caught up in the sauce that you walk into a space, it could be a party, and you still feel invisible because nobody is noticing your presence because you're not present. You are literally living in a loop of past hell, emotional suffering states that you're carrying with you, which, by the way, when held on to for long enough, it just sits in your autonomic nervous system as a habit of that your body just revisits and revisits, and it turns into problems, emotional pain. Physical manifestations include, but are not limited to, all autoimmune diseases. Cancer, anything you want to think of. There are so many studies today talking about this, guys. And I'm having this conversation with you. As you can see, I'm not selling you anything. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. Whether you or your loved ones, anybody around you, is having an experience of profound suffering for an extended period of time, it is sooner than later than the autonomic nervous system and the immune system, because the immune system is 100% controlled by the ANS at a subconscious level, because you don't think about your white blood cells have to go to this part of your life and attack the zombie cells that have turned from dying cells that refuse to just detonate themselves, and now they're turning into what we call zombie cells. And these zombie cells are eating the resources of the body, which become tumors, and the autoimmune system is destroying those at every second. There is millions of these that are happening. See, think about it this way: 3 million cells every second, between 3 to 5, are replaced within our body every second. I want you to think about that for a second. I really love this. Gothic King, thank you. And I'm going to share this part too. You see this? This is exactly what he's sharing. I started taking opiates because it was the first time I actually felt true happiness and not emotional pain. That's exactly what I'm talking to you about, guys. Thank you again, Gothic King. And by the way, since you're still watching this with us, brother, the words you use, the Gothic King, whatever Gothic means to you, it has a power. Even if it's your handle of your Facebook account, please, if you want to experience whatever it is that you want, do not say, I don't want this. See, this is one of the things we get taught first in executive consulting and breakthrough coaching programs, to do with our most premium clients, because when we go to them is when they want to go from point A, which is where they are, to point B, which is where they want to be, and they want to shorten the gap between the where I am today and where I want to get to. That is our expertise. We are the catalyzers, okay? We make things happen very quickly. So we go in, and you know what is the first thing we ask them? Okay, so let's see, where are you today? Where are you standing from your money perspective, from your family, from your health, from anything you want to actually change in your life? Okay, cool. Now, where do you want to go? You know what is the first conversation that always comes up every time? Oh, well, I definitely don't want to experience being broke. I definitely don't want to experience having a bad relationship. Well, wait a second. I did not ask you what you don't want to experience more of. I just asked you, what do you want? And see, what just happened is we always start by thinking what it is that we want to avoid, because we've been living inside that pain for such a long time that avoiding that pain is all we are trying to do. And that is literally, my friend, what I just told you, what's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because it doesn't matter what you repeat, even if you say it in a negative. See, 2 negatives does not make it a positive in the world of quantum vibrations and science. When you say, I don't, it doesn't make the next thing, not happen all of a sudden. You are literally, as a creator of your own experience, as your life, you are literally, through uttering the vibrations that are coming out of your mouth as words that we could measure with oscillators in laboratories. This has been there for almost 100 years right now. This is not a new science. You could actually measure the amplitude and the longitude, the oscillations of the frequencies that are audio. This is not a new thing, okay? And that has a direct impact on what you experience. That's why I was saying it yesterday. There are so many studies that show the name the parents give to one child can completely change, and does completely change, the path of that child. We see when a girl is named Rose, most of the times she becomes very, very soft. You don't see a rose that's just angry and it's coming at you with a hack. And you don't see Maximilius as a person who's coming to you like, Maximilius comes strong through the door, and you're like, who's that? And they're like, that's Maximilius. And you're like, oh shit, that is Maximilius. your name that you carry with you as a tag, which, by the way, the army understands this so quickly, which is why they have call IDs. They have unique call IDs for every soldier, because they don't want you to be the old person of the past, because they're training you psychologically to be somebody new who could actually pull the trigger and take somebody's life. That needs a lot of training. No human can do that without training. That's why they put a call ID on you, a call sign on you, which is a different name. Night Fox, Night Owl, Raging Tiger, whatever they want to call you. Or they just give you a name, a letter and a name, because they need you to disassociate yourself from the name and the identity of the person of the past who was the child of somebody and the brother and the father to somebody, so that when in the radio it goes like 6-8, this is your time to pull the trigger, you go like, yes it is, fuck, boom. You don't think about it. You can't do that. You're there on a mission. And that's what I'm proposing to you and inviting you to understand right now, my friend. You are here on a mission, and that mission is not to be miserable. That mission is not to suffer. That mission is literally... See, I'm not a religious person. I want you to understand this. Any references that I'm making for you, they come from 100% a scientific background, because I am a nerd. I'm a geek. I love studying and learning. And stay with us for the addiction, because this is what the conversation is about today. Our addiction, our desire, addictive personalities that pull us towards doing things obsessively that are not serving us. If this resonates with you, click it out, because I want you to move your body and don't just sit still in one state, because we are going through right now what's called an energetic portal, that by just playing along and co-creating this with me, you get to experience a new possibility, a new vision into your own life and future. And the past, of course. That's what I'm inviting you to do on here. I'm not charging you anything. I'm not selling you nothing. This is a one-to-one love brother connection, brotherly connection. I'm here to serve you if you want to serve yourself or your family. If you don't, that's fine. Just do whatever you want to do. Love you. Thank you. So I want to tell you this. Everything I study, because of my job, I have to keep on studying, but I love it because it just keeps me on my toes with the newest inventions, with human ingenuities that are coming out on the cusp of the science, because I love to do this. But aside from this, this starts from a beginning of being born in the Middle East in a family that was in a country that was Muslim. By force, they would beat us as kids to make us go pray in the prayer room. So I want you to understand that when you are born as a human in a space, in a specific geographical area, you end up taking on the language, the culture, and the religion of that area. That's right. So when you're born anywhere, what your culture is, what your background is, what your religion and your language is, just given to you at that moment. So then imagine being beaten as kids to have to go to pray in a prayer room in a basement of your school, round everybody up every day, kick everybody in the basement, and go start praying. Okay, no problem. That's how we start our life. Then we immigrated. We came to Canada with my family when I was 14, and in Canada, I ended up being put into a Catholic school. So imagine a kid that was just beaten to take up a religion that I didn't even want to have anything to do with, because obviously, when has humanity ever responded to negative coercion and negative ways of altering behavior? Never. We know that from Pavlov that even our dogs cannot be trained with just negative reinforcement. That's why the positive reinforcement is always the path. However, that's not the conversation. So I come to Canada, I get put into a Christian school. As a matter of fact, a Catholic school, which they're pretty straight with the religion. So as they should be, no judgments. So now I'm completely just exposed to a new environment. And by the way, Muslims, They beat into us that you're the best, just like the Christians beat into themselves that they're the best and forget everybody else. And the Jewish do the same thing. The Buddhists do the same thing. Everybody says we're the best and F the rest. Okay, so the point is this: you come from one human being, from one of these, into the complete alternative paradigm, and you're like, oh, wait a second, are we just going through like a twilight zone here? Like, because these guys were just saying the same thing in their own language, in their own country, about something that was not this, and they were saying we're the only real ones. They're saying lies, and now I'm here. They're like, well, we're the only ones, that everybody else is just wrong. And I was like, what the hell? So the moment I graduated out of high school and I went to university, I was like, enough of this. No more continuing to pick education. But the nerd within me goes like, hey, come on, bro, come on, you're gonna do this now? You've gone through two full sets. You know, like Catholicism very well now. You've attended masses. You've been to, you've sat in the religious programs in school, and you come from a Muslim-born country. You're telling me right now you're going to drop this ball and you're not going to actually continue figuring out what everybody else is saying? I was like, oh, fuck. All right, cool. So we're in university and we take a world religion course as my electives. I started attending it just actually at the beginning without even taking it for a few sessions. I just attend it. I love it. I'm listening to the, I was like, oh, interesting. So they're talking about all 6 different primary religions and then all of the smaller ones. I want to see what they all have to say. The funny thing is, when you study them, they all say the same thing. It's just they say it in their own language, which they initially came from. They all have the same one creator, and they're all fighting over the words on who gets to call it what name. This is the biggest problem we're having as humanity. 2,225 years into the last biggest prophet on this planet, and we're still having humans killing each other in the name of calling the thing that created all of this a different name. You want to call it Allah, you want to call it Holy Spirit, you want to call it Yahweh, you want to call it Shiva, whatever you want to call it. There's like thousands and thousands of names for it. The funny thing is, the nature doesn't even have a name for it. It's just connected to it. But since we love to disconnect ourselves from the source and pretend like we are these big things on our own, it's so much more convenient to just put a name on the thing that created all of this, and now go and try to shove that down somebody else's throat and telling them that my name that I call it is the right name and the one you call it is the wrong name. Now, why does all of this matter? It's the suffering, it's the addiction, and it's the pain and the states of suffering. And this is what I was trying to tell you. One of the most profound things, and I'm going all over the map, but if you stay with me, you'll see how this all ties to each other. Every day we come between 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. to actually serve you with these empowering strategies, thought structures, and deconstructing really of all the things we have learned, because it is only through unlearning that we get to open up space to learn new subject matters that will help us succeed and bring about wealth, health, success into our lives and into our families' lives. So don't lose this. Stay with me. We started with the client over the weekend who's well-to-do. They were going through a lot of health issues. And the reason they were is because they're holding on to baggage, emotional suffering baggage from their past. And the reason they do that is the same reason every other human has been doing it, is because we're taught that living in those lingering states of suffering from the past actually allows us to care, and we just stay in there. And the funny thing is, we don't even do this to people that we hate and our enemies. We just go to war with them one time and we just get it over with. We either kill them or kill ourselves. That's what humanity's been done for thousands of years. Yet you know what we do with ourselves? We go every day in hour-to-hour basis and we become our own judge, our own prosecutor, our own defense system, and our own executioner. So we go and we just constantly live in this state of, why did I do this? Why did I not do that? Oh, I had to. No, I didn't have to. It was absolutely not necessary. Yes, it was. How did I even get into this? Oh, it was because of how I was a victim to that. And no, I wasn't. I was actually my choice. No, what are you talking about? Are you saying it was my choice to get butt hurt and get stabbed in my back? And the conversation will keep on going. And then at the end, when we get so exhausted, I'm just like, oh, fuck. I've been doing this for like, God knows how long. I'm like, oh, I need to feel good right now. What do I do? I feel so shit. Of course I do. Okay, now, here come the addiction for everybody. Different things. Some people go to sugar, instant satisfaction, dopamine. Some people go to porn. Some people go to sex, some people go to work, some people go to gym, some people go to video games, some people go to alcohol, some people go to opioids. Doesn't matter what you go to. At this moment, we all want to break. We all want to breathe. So we're like, okay, what can change my state right now and bring me happiness? Because I've been in this shit show for a long time and I do not want to be here any longer. Oh yeah, I know. Every time I go and I eat something, it makes me feel good. Those, my friends, are the ones who are not able to manage their weight. You see them. They show up as obese. And they love to play the genetics victim game, which, by the way, now science knows 100% not to be true of all the human problems, discomforts, and diseases, which a lot of people like to just name it quickly disease because it just makes it this monster that now I could play a victim to, that I got this. This ease just means you threw your body out of a state of ease, which is where your natural home state is. So now, what do people do? They actually throw themselves into this roller coaster of, I don't feel well. Okay, for me to feel well, I need to do the cheap shot of instant satisfaction, get that dopamine in my system. And then within, oh wow. Within, I just realized that we have a client meeting. And here I am trying to serve and do my best to be here. And I really, really want you all to get so much value from this before I leave. So allow me to put this together, because we're going to watch a video of Dr. Gabon together talking about addiction, where we get to speak inside his beautiful human mind and the studies he's done. And this is not about opioid or heroin addiction. This is about all humanity's addiction. I want you to tune in with this, because we all have it. Social media, by the way, our phone is the biggest addiction of humanity right now. Studies are done on this. Immense studies are done on this. So understand, the reason we go into addictive patterns is because we want those cheap dopamine instant satisfaction shots, because we are living in a constant state of suffering since we have been the judge, the executioner, the defense, and the prosecutor of ourselves, living in a constant and perpetual state of familiar past, which only gives us a predictable future from which we want to not be involved in any longer, and we want to escape, and yet we find no way of doing it. So then the easiest way is to just distract myself right now by getting myself into anything that makes me feel good, or video games, by the way, as Gothic King said nicely too. Anything you do, the gym, anything, working. So many workaholics out there, so many shopaholics out there. So anytime you want to change your life, you got to change yourself. You cannot do that. And here the thing is, that I am here to serve you, not to please you. I'm not getting paid for this. I'm not selling you anything. So I don't care if you believe this or not. I don't care if you're gonna hear the sound of reason or the sound of your higher self, which I don't claim to be any of the things that I say. I just channel what comes through so that I could best serve you, my clients, and everybody that I love. I'm telling you, I want you to understand that your state, your controls your life. Your state controls your life, and your state comes from the meanings and emotions within you. What emotions you feel create how you show up, and how you feel, what emotions you feel, come from how you think. So if you want to have a different outcome, aka a different life, you need to change how you feel, and in order for that, you need to change your thinking. With that said, I would like to invite you, because this conversation goes deep, and we attend 10-day seminars, 4-day Tony Robbins seminars from morning 9 a.m. until 11 p.m. at nighttime to understand and be able to implement these within ourselves. So I am just trying to put a, what is it called? The needle's hole. I'm trying to push pressure as much information as I can through that needle's eye, that's what it's called, not needle's hole. I'm trying to funnel as much information as I can through the needle's eye, so that hopefully, and I know it may feel like drinking out of a fire hose, but it will serve you at the right time, at the right place, because this comes not from me. This is the message from yourself, from your higher self, from your protectors, from your guardians, from your angels. It came to me through others, and now it's flowing through me, and I claim no responsibility to whatsoever of what I say. So I'm here to serve you. And with that said, let's go speak and hear out Dr. Gabon speaking of addiction. Don't go anywhere. If you say, I'm not addicted, that just means you haven't found what your addiction is. I told you, go to your phone and you'll see how much time you spend on your social media. That is your addiction. Because if you were to spend half of that time on anything that you want to experience more of in your life, that would already be your reality today. However, it's not, because your addiction is keeping you on your social media, glued to the screen, scrolling mindlessly, and finding yourself wasting hours. So do not say, I don't have an addiction. We all do. We just got to find what mine is. Let's listen to Dr. Gabon, everybody.
I've come to talk to you about addiction, the power of addiction, but also addiction to power. And as a medical doctor, I work in Vancouver, Canada, and I've worked with some very, very addicted people. People who use heroin, they inject cocaine, they drink alcohol, crystal meth, and every drug known to man. And these people suffer. If the success of a doctor is to be measured by how long his patients live, then I'm a failure, because my patients die very young, relatively speaking. They die of HIV, they die of hepatitis C, they die of infections of their heart valves, they die of infections of their brains, of their spine, of their hearts, of their bloodstream. They die of suicide, of overdose, of violence, of accidental deaths. And if you look at them, you call to mind the words of the great Egyptian novelist Naguib Mahfouz, who wrote, "Nothing records the effects of a sad life as graphically as the human body," because these people lose everything. They lose their health, they lose their beauty, they lose their teeth, they lose their wealth, they lose human relationship, and in the end, they often lose their lives. And yet nothing shakes them from their addiction. Nothing can force them to give up their addiction. The addictions are powerful. And the question is why? And as one of my patients said to me, "I'm not afraid of dying," he said, "I'm more afraid of living." And the question we have to ask is, why are people afraid of life? And if you want to understand addiction, you can't look at what's wrong with the addiction, you have to look at what's right about it. In other words, what is the person getting from the addiction? What are they getting that otherwise they don't have? And what addicts get are relief from pain. What they get is a sense of peace, a sense of control, a a sense of calmness, very, very temporarily. And the question is, why are these qualities missing from their lives? What happened to them? Now, if you look at the drugs like heroin, like morphine, like codeine, if you look at cocaine, if you look at alcohol, these are all painkillers. One way or another, they all soothe pain. And that's what the real question in addiction is, not why the addiction, but why the pain. Now, I just finished reading the biography of Keith Richards, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones. And as you probably know, everybody's still surprised that Richards is still alive today, because he was a heavy-duty heroin addict for a long time. And in his biography, he writes that the addiction was all about looking for oblivion, looking for forgetting. He said, the contortions that we go through just not to be ourselves for a few hours. And I understand that very well myself, because I know that discomfort with myself. I know that discomfort being in my own skin. I know that desire to escape from my own mind. The great British psychiatrist R.D. Lang said that there are three things that people are afraid of. They're afraid of death, of other people, and their own minds. And for a long time in my life, I wanted to distract myself from my own mind because I was afraid to be alone with it. And how would I distract myself? Well, I've never used drugs, but I've distracted myself through work and throwing myself into activity. And I've distracted myself through shopping. In my case, for classical compact music, classical compact discs. But I've been a real addict that way. One week I spent $8,000 on the classical compact discs, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't help going back to the store. And as a medical doctor, I used to deliver a lot of babies. And once I left a woman in labor in hospital to get a classical piece of music. And I still could have made it back to the store, to the hospital on time. But once you're in the store, you can't leave because there are these evil classical music dealers in the aisles, you know, who, hey, buddy, have you listened to the latest Mozart symphony cycle? You haven't? Well, so I missed the delivery of that baby. And I'd come home and I lie to my wife about it, like any addict. I would lie about it. And I would ignore my own children because of my obsession with work and with music. So I know what that escape from the self is like. And my definition of addiction is any behavior that gives you temporary relief, temporary pleasure, but in the long term causes harm, has some negative consequences, and you can't give it up despite those negative consequences. And from that perspective, you can understand that there's many, many addictions. Yes, there's the addiction to drugs, but there's also the addiction to consumerism. There's the addiction to sex, to the internet, to shopping, to food. The Buddhists have this idea of the hungry ghosts. The hungry ghosts are creatures with large empty bellies and small scrawny necks and tiny little mouths, so they can never get enough. They can never fill this emptiness on the inside. And we all hungry ghosts in this society. We all have this emptiness. And so many of us are trying to fill that emptiness from the outside. And the addiction is all about trying to fill that emptiness from the outside. Now, if you want to ask the question of why people are in pain, you can't look at their genetics. You have to look at their lives. And in the case of my patients, my highly addicted patients, it's very clear why they're in pain. Because they've been abused all their lives. They began life as abused children. All the women I worked with over a 12-year period, hundreds of them, they had all been sexually abused as children. And the men had been traumatized as well. The men had been sexually abused, neglected, physically abused, abandoned, and emotionally hurt over and over again. And that's why the pain. And there's something else here too. The human brain itself, as you heard already, develops an interaction with the environment. It's not just genetically programmed. So the kind of environment that a child has will actually shape the development of the brain. Now, I can tell you about two experiments with mice. You take a little mouse and you put food in his mouth, and he'll eat it and enjoy it and swallow it. But if you put the food down a few inches away from his nose, he will not move to eat it. He will actually starve to death rather than eat. Why? Because genetically, they knocked out the receptors for a chemical in the brain called dopamine. Dopamine is the incentive motivation chemical. Dopamine flows whenever we're motivated, excited, vital, vibrant, curious about something, when we're seeking food or a sexual partner. Without the dopamine, we have no motivation. Now, what do you think the addict gets? When the addict shoots cocaine, the addict shoots crystal meth, or almost any drug, they get a hit of dopamine in their brain. And the question is, what happened to their brains in the first place? Because it's a myth that drugs are addictive. Drugs are not by themselves addictive, because most people who try most drugs never become addicted. So the question is, why are some people vulnerable to be addicted? Just like food is not addictive, but to some people it is. Shopping is not addictive, but to some people it is. Television is not addictive, but to some people it is. So the question is, why the susceptibility? There's another little experiment with mice where infant mice, if they're separated from the mothers, will not cry for their mothers. Now, what would that mean in the wild? It means that they would die, because only the mother protects the child's life and nurtures the child. And why? Because genetically, they knocked out the receptors, the chemical binding sites in the brain for endorphins. And endorphins are our indigenous morphine-like substances. Endorphins are our own natural painkillers. And what morphine, or what endorphins also do, they make possible the experience of love. They make possible the experience of attachment to the parent and the parent's attachment to the child. So these little mice without endorphin receptors in their brains will actually not call for their mothers. In other words, the addiction to these drugs, and of course the heroin and the morphine, what they do is they act on the endorphin system. That's why they work. And so the question is, what happens to people that they need these chemicals from the outside? Well, what happens to them is when they're abused as children, those circuits don't develop. When you don't have love and connection in your life, when you're very, very young, then those important brain circuits just don't develop properly. And under conditions of abuse, things just don't develop properly, and their brains then are susceptible when they do the drugs. Now they feel normal, now they feel pain relief, now they feel love. And there's one patient said to me that when I first did heroin, she said, it felt like a warm, soft hug, just like a mother hugging a baby. Now, I've had that same emptiness, not to the same degree as my patients. What happened to me? What happened to me is that I was born in Budapest, Hungary in 1944 to Jewish parents, just before the Germans occupied Hungary. And you know what happened to the Jewish people in Eastern Europe. And I was 2 months old when the German army moved into Budapest, the Wehrmacht, and the day after they did, my mother phoned the pediatrician and she said, would you please come and see Gabor, because he's crying all the time. And the pediatrician said, of course I will come to see him, but I should tell you, all my Jewish babies are crying. Now why? What do babies know about Hitler or genocide or war? Nothing. What we're picking up on is the stresses and the terrors and the depression of our mothers. And that actually shapes the child's brain. That actually shapes the child's brain. And of course, what happens then is I get the message that the world doesn't want me. Because if my mother's not happy around me, she must not want me. Why do I become a workaholic later? Because if they don't want me, at least they're going to need me. Now I'll be an important doctor, and they're going to need me. And that way I can make up for the feeling of not being wanted in the first place. And what does that mean? It means that I'm working all the time, and when I'm not working, I'm consumed by buying music. What message do my kids get? My kids get the same message, that they're not wanted. And this is how we pass it on. We pass on the trauma, and we pass on the suffering unconsciously from one generation to the next. So obviously, there are many, many ways to fill this emptiness. And for each person, there's a different way of feeling the emptiness. But the emptiness always goes back to what we didn't get when we were very small. What we didn't get when we were very small. And then we look at the drug addict, and we say to the drug addict, how can you possibly do this to yourself? How can you possibly inject this terrible substance into your body that may kill you? But look at what we're doing to the earth. We're injecting all kinds of things into the atmosphere and the oceans and the environment that is killing us, that's killing the earth. Now, which addiction is greater? The addiction to oil or to consumerism? Which causes the greater harm? And yet we judge the drug addict because we actually see that they're just like us, and we don't like that. So we say, you're different from us. You're worse than we are. On the plane to Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, I was reading the New York Times on June the 9th, and it was an article about Brazil. And the article was about a man called Nigio Gomes, a leader of the Guarani people in the Amazon, who was killed last November. And you probably heard about him. And he was killed because he was protecting his people from the big farmers and companies that are taking over the rainforest and destroying the rainforest, and they're destroying the habitat of the native Indian people here in Brazil. And I can tell you that coming from Canada, the same thing has happened over there. And many of my patients were actually First Nations Indian people, native Indian people in Canada. And they are heavily addicted. They make up a small percentage of the population, but they make up a large percentage of the people in jail, the people who are addicted, the people who are mentally ill, the people who commit suicide. Why? Because the lands were taken away from them, and because they were killed.